Hey everyone, Eric here from Mask Audio Electronics. In this video, we're going to talk about EQ pedals and a couple different ways you can use them, and we're doing it with the Mask Audio Electronics Line Blur. Okay, so EQ pedals are something that's not really flashy. They're often overlooked, but they are incredibly powerful and they can be useful in any sort of setup. Let's go over the signal chain. We're using my Gibson 73 SG standard into the Civil Math. I don't have that on. I'll let you know when I kick it on. You'll know when I kick it on. Anyway, that goes into the line blur. The line blur goes into the front of the Boss Katana. The Katana is set pretty clean. So with the line blur, we have a combination of static and parametric EQs. We have a low and a high, which are active EQs. The low is centered around 100 Hertz, the high is centered around 2K. In the middle, with the knob straight up and down, we don't really get any boost or cut. And then if we want to boost it, you can turn up past noon. If we want to cut it, you can turn down past noon. Speaking of boosting and cutting, the first use of an EQ pedal could be to boost your signal, or maybe even volume match another guitar in your setup. As we said before, we have the knobs all the way at noon, so we're getting a pretty even keeled response from when we turn on the pedal. So let's go ahead and kick on the pedal. So that's the clean signal. Right now we're not boosting much, so we can turn up the loud control because that's the output volume. And right there, we're getting a pretty good boost. We're kind of raising all of the frequencies at the same time because, again, we have the low, the mid, and the high set to noon, so they're not boosting or cutting. Now, one of the very useful things about the line blur in particular is it has a ton of headroom in it, so you can get pretty loud sounds out of it. You can push a loud sound into it as well. And it actually has a preamp circuit inside the pedal, and that's controlled by this more knob here. So again, specifically to the line blur, we can turn that more knob up and we can actually boost our signal as well as overdriving it. So let's go ahead and turn the loud down to like 70%. And I'm gonna turn that more control up. There is a lot of output volume and drive inside the line blur. Now again, that's kind of specific to the line blur. Other EQ pedals are going to have a master output volume, so you can just crank that up. And even if it's on something like a graphic EQ where each band has a slider, you can just slide all of the EQ bands up as well as the master volume to get like a really, really crazy boost. Next up, we're going to talk about maybe a little bit more of a subtle use for an EQ pedal, and that's just shaping your guitar sound to go into your amp or other effects pedals after it. So right now I don't have the line blur on, and we're on my bridge pickup right here. Pretty good, but from here we can really fine-tune the sound of the guitar by utilizing the line blur in more subtle fashions. So let's say I'm thinking maybe I want a thicker sound and a less mid-focused sound. So if we want a thicker sound, we can boost the low control. That sounded really good. And maybe we want a little more sparkle in the top end, a little bit more definition in those high frequencies, so we can do the same thing with the high control. And now we still have that really sharp mid-range, which can be cool, but maybe in this instance we don't want that exactly. So we can turn the mid control down. So now I've rearranged the pedals a little bit. I've got the line blur going into the Civil Math, and the Civil Math is turned on with this sound. And we're gonna demonstrate how we can use an EQ pedal, in this case the line blur, to boost into the front of something like a Big Muff. Now the Civil Math has a boost built into the front of the pedal with the boost control right here, but what I wanna show is how you can change the voice of your guitar going into the Civil Math with different frequencies to get a different sound. And if that sounds like gibberish, just stick with me real quick. So we have the Civil Math set up like this. Like just a whole bunch of low end is building up. Now what we can do is we can kick on the line blur, not necessarily boosting, but we can actually turn the lows down to get a tighter sound out of the Civil Math. So in that instance, we attenuated a lot of the low end to make the signal going from the guitar into the Civil Math less low and heavy to thus get a tighter sound out of the Civil Math. I'm gonna go ahead and set the low up to noon again, and we're gonna flip to the bridge pickup. Now we can do something like push a bunch of mid frequencies into the Civil Math to kind of get a more snarly sound. Let's go ahead and kick on the line blur. We have none of the frequencies boosted right now. So now let's start to boost the mid control. So there, it's starting to turn into kind of like a cocked wah sound, because with the mid control, we're specifically boosting a narrower Q. The Q is how many frequencies around the center get boosted. So a wider Q means more frequencies around that center frequency get boosted. But with the mid control, we get a narrower Q, and it's semi-parametric, so we can't control the Q, but we can control the frequency. And we can move the frequency up and down the spectrum with the frequency control. So if we start with the frequency control all the way down, we're getting a lower mid-range boost. In this case, we're boosting it, we're not cutting it. And to demonstrate that, let's play a little bit and we'll go up and down the frequency spectrum. So now we've switched back with the Civil Math in front of the line blur, and we're gonna go ahead and tackle the next sort of use for an EQ pedal, and that is to put after some sort of drive pedal, in this case a fuzz, because this lets us revoice the drive pedal, distortion, in our case fuzz, or overdrive. And that is because whenever you send a signal into a drive pedal, you get a specific voice out of the drive pedal. If you put an EQ before the drive pedal, you're going to manipulate and kind of revoice like we did before with the cocked wah sort of sound. You can get a significant change, but when you place an EQ after a drive, you get a lot more frequency range to affect the sound. So here's the Civil Math by itself. Now let's go ahead and turn on the line blur. What we can do is we can start to sculpt the sound. So maybe we want a little bit more high end. Maybe we want to thicken up the sound by turning the low end up. So now I have a cool idea. Maybe we want to take the Civil Math and make it kind of sound like a super fuzz, which is really scooped in the mid range. So let's go ahead, take the mid control and turn it down. Now let's go ahead and sweep the frequency control to see exactly where we want that scoop to take place. Okay, to my ears, with the frequency control all the way up, that gets the most super fuzz-like sound. So now from here, I want to kind of just go crazy and turn the high and the low up and see how that sounds. So all the way. So there are a few ways on how to use an EQ pedal in a setup. Did we miss any? Let us know in the comments below how you use EQ pedals, because again, it's a very overlooked and kind of unflashy effect. But as we heard, it's a really powerful effect and it can get you a lot of significant results. I hope you dug this video. If you want to learn more about the line blur or the Civil Math, any of our pedals, I'm gonna leave a link to the Mask Audio website in the description below. Go ahead, check those out. I hope you're doing well out there. Stay safe and stay fuzzy.